BBC Asian Network, DJ Firestarr in the building. It's that time of the show. I've got a special guest. I've been trying to get him on the show for months and months and even more months. Superstar comedian, TV personality, all-round funny guy, and a huge hip-hop fan. So I had to get him on the show. Welcome, my bro, Romesh Ranganathan. How you doing?
Hello, Faster. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I've just done this morning. My kids have gone back to school after 6 months of being at home,
Right.
and it feels like my house feels like after an apocalypse. Just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's mad. It feels so quiet. But yeah, we're going to find out if my wife and I have got anything left in our marriage now. Do you know what I mean? Because we've been distracted by these kids and all this stuff.
How have you found, obviously, the last couple of months, with everything that's going on, the current climate, and how have you found things?
It was, to be honest with you, it was weird because I was in the middle of a tour. So I've been on tour end of last year, beginning of this year, and I was just starting a run at the Apollo in Hammersmith, and I think we're 2 days into that when lockdown happened. And so live comedy's just gone. Do you know what I mean? You know from what you do, all that just disappeared instantly. And so that was weird. But I mean, luckily I've been able to, I did a TV show from the garage and stuff like that. So I've been able to keep working, which has been good.
Have you found the work rate, have you been doing more than,
Well, do you know what? I don't know if this happened to you, but I know this happened to me and a lot of comedians, is we sort of went slightly insane. Because we were so worried not worried, it's suddenly like, I can't do comedy anymore. And then so suddenly I started doing Facebook Lives all the time. I was doing Insta Lives all the time. And I was doing a Facebook Live every day for the first month of lockdown with no content whatsoever. Just me, it must have been so boring. I said, I've got to go through that now and delete every one of those videos because they're on my Facebook now. I'm sure I've said something cancelable on one of them. Do you know what I mean? I've got to get rid of it. But I think it's one of those things where it was strange because everybody was trying to figure out what to do. And I think actually the mental stress of what the lockdown was meant that people I think it took a while for people to adjust to what was going on. Do you know what I mean? So at first I found it tough, but then I do this show called The Ranganation, which we did in a studio last year.
Yeah.
And so I talked to the production company and we talked about how we're going to do it from home. And we ended up doing it in my garage, which was good. And it gave me a bit of routine. Do you know what I mean? It was good. It felt good to be able to be working because I know not everybody's been so lucky. But it's been a strange one. It feels like, as I said, I took my kids to school this morning. It feels like we're heading back towards normality. But at the same time, all the parents were wearing face masks. So it kind of changes it up a bit. But yeah, I've been able to keep working. But live comedy wise, mate, I don't know what your gigs have been like, but I've been doing, they were doing comedy in car parks and instead of laughing, people would toot their horns. Wow. I've been doing pub gardens, all sorts, mate. So
I think I've found it. It's been a situation where obviously the clubs they're not open essentially. Yeah. So everyone's trying to find a way to kind of get something going, like you said. I find myself doing brunches and restaurants and things like that, and then it's people can't they struggle to kind of stay still essentially, and then it turned. I've been to a few that have maybe been, let's just say, the rules have maybe gone a bit left or right here and there. Yeah. But it's crazy times. It's definitely crazy.
It feels a bit arbitrary. I've got to be honest with you, because I've been doing gigs, and it's all obviously we've got to adhere to conditions and stuff like that. But I don't think anybody is 100% sure on what you're supposed to be doing or what you're not supposed to be doing. Do you know what I mean? I know that we've got all these regulations and stuff, but like you said, some gigs you go to, you basically can't make direct eye contact with people because they're worried about transmission or whatever. And then others, there's so much the other way. And you think there doesn't seem to be, because everybody's trying to find their way in it. There's no set way of doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's just everybody's sort of I guess this is a safe way of doing it. I know we're sort of trying to stick to regulations and stuff, but like you said, there's been a couple of gigs I've been to and I thought, I don't know if this is actually how we're supposed to be doing this.
The way it's supposed to be.
But I don't want to be that guy to put my hand up and go, can I just say, I think this needs to be shut down, actually.
Exactly.
I don't want to be that dude, but...
Is it, I mean, any of the stuff and the way you've had to work, is any of it, do you see any of that actually continuing like that as a easier way to do things maybe going forward? Has it made your life easier doing something?
Yeah, I mean, mate, it has made my life a lot easier in many ways. I mean, I live in Crawley, which is, as you know, is UK's hip hop centre. And so like whenever I've been working on like shows, normally when we write the shows, I go into London first thing in the morning. I spend the day there. We do a proper office day, and then I'll go to a gig in London, try out the material, and then come home at like midnight or 1 or something like that, and then do the same thing the next day. Whereas now I've been writing it at home, like I'm talking to you now, just sort of, we sit on a Zoom all day. Yeah. And then I was having to run material, so I just did it online. I did online gigs. Do you know what I mean? So I was just trying my material out to a group of people on a Zoom chat, and it was easier. Like it is easier. I'm at home. I wouldn't say it's easier for my wife and family because I've just been around the whole time. But it was easier. But it's not the same. Do you know what I mean? You know, from when you're doing brunches and stuff like that, I was trying out my material in my kitchen. It's just not quite the same. But there are certain things like the catering at a meeting now would have to be incredible for me to leave the house again for a meeting. Do you know what I mean? Because you sort of think, we can have this discussion and I don't have to leave my house. Why on earth would I come to wherever you are? It makes no sense.
I think it makes you realise how much time is wasted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, mate, 100%. It's like going to London for a meeting. That's a 3-hour round trip for me, pretty much. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'm not doing that again. Oh, like you can, and also, you know what it's like. You must have it. You go to a meeting, and most meetings, let's be honest, are a waste of time, right? Especially
they last 6 minutes. They last 6 minutes, and they're scheduled for half an hour or an hour. Yeah,
mate. And you know when you sit in a meeting, you go to a meeting, you travel all the way there, you sit in a meeting, and it becomes apparent, like you said, 6 minutes in, that you have discussed everything that needs to be discussed, right? So essentially, it's over. So then people just start chatting other stuff to try and give there some sort of purpose for us all having turned up here, when actually what you want to say is, okay, it turns out this has been a huge mistake. It's been a waste of my time, been a waste of your time traveling here. I'm sorry, I hold my hands up. I really do regret my actions here. But nobody wants to do that. So they just go, so no, it's been really good to sort of properly connect face to face regarding this, and be great. Should we touch base again? And I go, yeah, I'm going to touch base remotely from my house because I'm never going to turn up to a meeting with you again.
Now, before we get into the music, I think a relevant topic you mentioned the time at home. I think this question is relevant to you because you touched on it on the comedy. What's it been like being at home with the family and the kids over the last couple of months? For the people that know your comedy as well, you talk about.
Mate, because I do loads of travel shows and stuff like that, right? And this whole time, I had genuinely thought that my relationship with my wife and children was surviving despite the fact I'm away so much. But now I've realised it's because of the fact I was away so much. Because first of all, my wife and I, do you know that thing where the conversation, snappy is not the word, right? We have been borderline, like raging at each other the whole time. And as with regards to my kids, my children, I think my children are probably one of the only set of children that would say, actually, I think it would improve our quality of life if we saw our dad less. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, mate, I'll be honest with you, I love my children to bits. I do love my children, but I'm not great at being a dad. Do you know what I mean? In terms of my influence on the children and stuff like that, like, things like swearing, I don't care about as much as my wife. I'm constantly making inappropriate jokes in front of the kids. I just sort of don't mind about that stuff. And I think while I'm away, my wife can manage that situation, because then I turn up for a day or something, do a load of inappropriate stuff, and then I go off, and then she unprograms all of that stuff I've done. Whereas over the last few months, they've just had dad all the time. I mean, my kids, their development has been hindered so much as a result of the amount of time they've spent with me, mate. It's been crazy. My wife was so delighted they've gone back to school, because hopefully we can get them back to normal status. Do you know what I mean?
That's hilarious, bro. On the topic of being at home and obviously your love for music, what's the influence been like on the kids with the hip hop side of things?
Well, I have spent. So my oldest son is 11 now, and I have spent all of those 11 years trying to get this kid to become a hip hop fan. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a like rebelling against your dad thing, but he would just resist. And it's so heartbreaking. Like, I know you love your music, mate. Like, you know, when you play what you consider like a classic, you know, when you play, I play like Biggie or Nas, like, you know, like trying to educate, trying to give them what I consider to be the basic building blocks of education when it comes to hip hop. And like my son listened to Nas and said, "This is a bit boring." I mean, it's like, if that isn't a test of your love for your son, I don't know what is, mate. Do you know what I mean? So I've spent my whole time trying to get them into hip hop. Obviously, my wife very worried about the type of hip hop I'm playing, the language, and all that kind of stuff. But what's happened is they've started to get into hip hop, but not because of me, because of TikTok. Because I don't know what your awareness or your engagement with TikTok is, but it's hip hop is all over that app. Like all of those dances and stuff is all. But I'll be honest with you, it's not really hip hop that I'm massively into. But it is hip hop. So I see that as a gateway. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking to myself, okay, so they kind of like that sort of stuff. So now I've got to try and bring them over to my side of it. Do you know what I mean? And so
we just need a couple of TikToks with a few classic.
Yeah, exactly.
Classic bangers.
Yeah, I just need like Juicy to go big on a TikTok video, and I'd be absolutely delighted, man.
Maybe that dance routine needs to come from, you know, the elder statesman in yourself.
Oh, could you imagine how tragic that would look? You just got TikTok with all these 20-year-olds just on there, and then just got one sort of fat 42-year-old dad trying to get Biggie big on TikTok, man. But I'm trying to get him into it and stuff, but you know, kids of that age, they're into the like catchy hooks and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So
he's not taking in the bars. He's not taking.
No, not at all. I mean, that's the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, my kid's not going to care if I go, "Did you hear the quality of that metaphor?" Like, he's not going to. So I've just sort of accepted it's going to take a while for me to break him in that regard. Do you know what I mean?
100%. Talk about you know, you being British Sri Lankan, your love for hip hop. Where did that stem from? You know, growing up.
Well, I had a mate leave a Public Enemy album at my house like years ago when I was like a kid, and I remember putting it on, and I had listened to hip hop before that, and I knew of the genre, but that record really hit me hard. I think partly because of the sound of it. It didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard before. Like, I remember, like, you know, when I listen to it now, I still get that feeling. But I think that, because It Takes a Nation of Millions was the album. But I think if I played that to somebody now, they'd be like, this sounds quite dated. I mean, hip hop it moves so quickly. I don't think it'd have the same impact to someone now. But at the time, I remember thinking, I've never heard anything sonically like this. I didn't think the word sonically. I was 11 years old. I don't think I would have thought that word. I just would have thought I've never heard anything like this before. And then also the thing that hit me second was the lyrics and the politics of it and stuff like that. And I really connected with that. And I remember there was a track by Public Enemy called "Fight the Power," and they slag off Elvis Presley on this record, right? You know, Elvis was a hero to most. And I just couldn't believe that somebody had the guts to do that. Because to my mind, Elvis was like this rock star that nobody was allowed to criticize. You know, it was considered such a hero, a legend. And the Public Enemy, it sort of struck me that they just said what they wanted to say. And I found that as a kid, I found that very, very exciting. And then from there, I got into, like, I remember when I first heard Straight Outta Compton by NWA, and I just thought, I can't believe that a record like this exists, man. And then just sort of went from there. I think it was like the sound of it I found amazing. Just somebody spitting bars over a beat. I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of that in my life. Like, sometimes I've listened to so much hip hop that I think I need to go. I'll go and listen to something else for a little bit. But the music that I come back to time and time again, I just don't think anything comes close. Do you know what I mean? I love it. But then also, it is the lyrics of it. You know, I sort of started off being interested. At the time that I got into hip hop, it was all about consciousness and the politics of it and the message behind it and stuff like that. And it moved away from that. But I still always was obsessed with lyrics. And so not just about politics, but like if somebody was just amazing at rapping about how good they were at rapping, I found that addictive. Do you know what I mean? It's all of that.
Did you bring any of that music back into your house? And are you growing up in a like Sri Lankan household? Were you playing that music loud? And how was that growing up?
Well, my mum and dad, I think like a lot of people's parents, they thought it was like awful. Like they really thought it was like horrendous music. And, you know, they didn't stop me from listening to it, but I listened to it all the time. My mum has always been a huge music fan, and she listens to all sorts of stuff. And my dad was not as big a music fan. He used to listen to a lot of reggae and stuff, but he had, I would say, he was completely devoid of any musical ability or even natural rhythm. I mean, his dancing was genuinely, being at a party when we used to go to Sri Lankan parties and my dad would start dancing. It was genuinely some of the most traumatic periods of my childhood. Is watching a man dance who everyone in the room knows that you're associated with and also related to. It's horrendous.
I'm sure a lot of Asian parents can, and sort of Asian kids can relate to that.
Oh, mate, we
all get that.
It's just awful, isn't it? It's just all because you sort of think, oh, that's my genetics. Do you know what I mean? That blood is pumping through my veins, so that means that's how I'm going to dance. Do you know what I mean? It's horrible. But they let me listen to it loads. And actually, my mum, I think, even though she didn't really like the music, although she has grown to like hip hop, but I think she was quite happy that I was as passionate about music as I was. Do you know what I mean? Because she grew up loving it. And so she felt like that was something she passed on to me. Because I'll be honest with you, when I was at home, it's a bit more difficult now, but when I was at home then, music was on in my house all the time. And as soon as I went into my bedroom, I would press play on something. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I was ever in my room without music playing. And that's what my mum and dad were like. And that's what it's like in our house. And so, they were very cool about it. But sometimes they just be like, I'll tell you the time that they started to get a bit like this is when I started to dress like it. Do you know what I mean? Like I started to like wear it was all baggy jeans and stuff like that. And I remember I nicked a VW badge and wore it around my neck and all that kind of stuff. I think then they started to think this is actually,
this could get out of hand.
Yeah, he looks absolutely ridiculous. But they were very relaxed about it. And then and it just stuck with me. Do you know what I mean? So I think that music has always been a big part of my family's life, I think.
Yeah. And obviously talk a little bit about, you've got the podcast. What made you, a lot of comedians, you would have thought maybe you'd just go and do a comedy podcast or, things like that. And you've just fully embraced kind of rap, hip hop, touch a little bit on that. And obviously the reason why you do the show, the podcast.
Yeah, well, it started out because basically what happened was that the whole reason that Hip Hop Saved My Life happened is I was doing, so Romesh, who's the producer and the kind of the co-host on the show, although he doesn't talk very much.
He doesn't talk a lot, does he?
No, he doesn't. With good reason, mate. He's got not a lot to contribute. But when he's also a comedy promoter, and we were doing, and when I first started doing stand-up, he booked me to host the evening section at one of his venues, right? And so I turned up. It was like it was in Camden, and there was a Camden Fringe, so there's comedy going on all over Camden. And so I'd done like a load of gigs during the day, and then I came back to host the last section of this night, and it was like chaos. Right? I walked in, the audience were going crazy. They weren't listening to the comics. It was like, honestly, mate, it was like a nightmare gig. Like I felt like I was having an anxiety dream. So I sort of walk in, and everybody's going crazy, and I know that I've got to go on stage in a bit. Like it was horrible, right? So I just walked in, and I said to Romesh, I said to him, mate, what are we going to do? Like this is like, I said, no disrespect, mate, but this gig it's got away from you. Like it's going so badly. And he said, oh, let's just try something a bit different. So I was like, all right. So then I started. So I went up on stage, and he had like some decks off stage. And what we started doing, we just started doing a hip hop comedy kind of crossover set, right? And it sort of evolved on stage. So I started doing setups where the punchline would be like a track, and then he would play a little bit of the track. So I'd do a joke, and then I'd go, and I said to her, listen, I've got 99 problems, and then 99 problems would drop in. And we kept doing that, and we were just making up as we went. And the crowd were going mad. Like they properly it sort of saved my experience on stage. Right. And then from there, we were just like, we should try and do like a hip hop comedy thing, because he loves hip hop, and as I do. And then it just occurred to us that hip hop is so wide reaching that people that you just don't expect to be into it love it. And that was the thing that I find so interesting about doing a podcast about it. So I said, the initial thing was, let's talk to comedians who people know from their comedy, but don't know that they've got this massive love of hip hop. Let's just talk to them about how much we love it. And you always get funny stories because like people, they dressed like it, they tried DJing, they tried rapping, all of that kind of stuff. You've always got tragic stories about people that tried to take part in the culture in some way. Do you know what I mean? So it just started like that. And then as it and to be honest with you, mate, we had no ambitions for it at all. It was just like, let's just do this thing for fun. If people listen to it, great. If they don't, it's still a laugh to do. And then it just sort of gradually grew to a point where we started getting rappers coming on. We started getting like non-comedy celebrities coming on. It just sort of went from there. But it's been an amazing thing to be able to do, man. Like I properly love hip hop. And so for it to be, to be doing a podcast about it is like, it's one of the things that I enjoy the most out of everything I do, to be honest.
How hard has the consistency of it been? When you start it and it's fun, and then obviously you're there's a lot of episodes now. You're in it heavy. I think you haven't had one for the last episode. I think was it in June with Annie Mac?
Yeah, well,
right?
Do you know what happened is that it just became difficult to like when you're chatting to rappers that you don't know, who you don't know. I think when you're in a room with them, you can chat to them and you get a rapport built up, and you can have a good interview. But I think like over Zoom, I just think that it's all right for you and me. You're a very personal guy. I'm a comic. It's a bit different. Do you know what I mean? But I think, when you're chatting to a rapper who you admire over Zoom, like we did one with R.A. the Rugged Man, who's like, I love him, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, mate, if you listen to that episode, I'm just a pathetic like fanboy on it. I'm just like, everything he says, I'm like, yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, no, you're amazing, man. Like just like that the whole way through. Whereas I felt like if I was in the room with him, it would have been, I would have been able to chat to him and connect with him a bit more. So we kind of decided that we'd give it a rest for a little bit until we're able to get back in the room. But in terms of, to answer your question, consistency in two ways has been tricky. Like, I think between the first episode and the second episode, maybe almost a year passed. I mean, that's how slack we were on doing it. And then we got into the habit of doing it regularly. But I think it's like the consistency of the content has been the one, because it varies so much based on who you're talking to. If you talk to a comedian, you know that you're going to get a funny episode, ideally, unless they're dreadful. And then, but if you talk to a rapper, it's going to be a bit different. If you talk to a producer, it's going to be super nerdy.
Yeah.
And so there's all these different kind of, the podcast changes depending on the type of guest we have. Do you know what I mean? So, but actually what's happened is as the podcast has gone on, people have accepted that some episodes will be funny, some episodes we're going to really get into it. Like we had Jaguar Skills on recently.
Yeah.
He's like obviously like knows hip hop inside out. So we got into a proper hip hop nerd discussion. Do you know what I mean? And that's fine. But then when I chatted to Tom Davis, who's a good mate of mine, who probably only really knows Snoop and Dre, and that's about it. Like it was a lot less in depth.
Yeah,
exactly. But it was funny. You know, it was a fun chat. So it's just kind of that really. I mean, we've had my mum on it before, and her hip hop knowledge is minimal, I would say. But we still got a good ep out of it. Do you know what I mean?
So when the podcast is going to return, then, yeah?
Yes, yeah. We're starting series 3. We're basically, I think this morning, I've been talking about who we're going to, like, sorting out new dates. Because I think studios are open now, so we're in a position where we can get back in and start doing it. So I'm hoping, I'm pretty sure, we've not confirmed the date yet, but we've got Koji Radical coming
awesome.
to start off series 3. So, and then we go from there. But we're back. Yeah, we're back. We'll be back in the next month or so.
Okay. Is there any? I mean, dream guests of yours personally that you've maybe been pushing for, or that you want to hear from, or I don't know?
It's a difficult one, man. It's a difficult one, man, because like you do have dream guests. You know, there's obviously people who I love. Like, for example, Pharoah Monch is like one of my favorite rappers of all time. Yeah. If we were able to get him on, that would be amazing. Like Kendrick would be an amazing guest. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the problem is, my concern is what that would do to me. Do you know what I mean? Like I always have that fear. Do you know what I mean? I think it'd be great on paper to get Pharoah Monch in a room to do the podcast would be amazing. But in reality, I think I would humiliate myself. Do you know what I mean? So in a way, I sort of don't know. So in that regard, I sort of think, let's let fate decide. If we manage to get these people, then great. But I know that if I got into a room with Nas or somebody like that, it would just be embarrassing. I know I'd get texts from my mates going, that was like genuinely one of the most humiliating things I've ever listened to. Just you giggling like a schoolgirl at everything that Nas says or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd be so desperate to be cool in front of these guys, and I'd just make an idiot of myself. I know I would.
I think it's good for people to hear that coming from you, that you do get nervous, and it does happen to kind of people in all sorts of positions. Do you know what I mean?
Happened. Yeah, you're right. I guess so. It doesn't feel good though when it happens. Do you know what I mean? Like we had Premiere on. And like we were able to, you know, it was amazing that we're able to go and chat to him. But I can't listen to it now. Like in the room at the time, I was like, this is such a great chat, and he's such a great guy. But when I listen to it back for the edit, because I always just have a listen to see if there's anything I've said. I always say something contentious that needs to be taken out to keep my career going. And I listened. I was like, I can't ever listen to this again. In fact, I almost dreaded it going out because I was so embarrassed about how I was just like, so it's so amazing to be in the room. And so like Gangstar, like incredible, absolutely incredible, man. Just so embarrassing. Do you know what I mean?
All right. So talking to the hip hop podcast, and you know your love for the genre.
Yeah.
Now we don't usually play games on my show. You know, it's normally music orientated. But the producers have got me up to a couple of things. So we thought we'd hit you with this game for you to see if you can guess the record and the artist. I'm going to say the lyrics to a couple of tracks. So we'll see what you get. There's three.
All right.
You know, there's three up. So I'll start with the first one, right?
Okay.
The track one.
How are you feeling about this, by the way? Are you good at this?
I love all three of these tracks. And I would be massively disappointed, and the BBC Asian Network would be massively disappointed if you did not get these right. But I'm hoping if you could get 2 out of 3, I think we're...
Okay.
The pressure's on.
If I don't get any of these right, I'm going to end Hip Hop Saved My Life.
All right. So the first...
It's a lot of pressure on this. Okay, go for it.
The mic is contacted. I attract clientele. My mic check is life or death. Breathing a sniper's breath.
Oh, this is... So can you do it again? Again?
The mic is contacted. I attract clientele.
Oh, so it ain't hard to tell, Niles, right?
Correct. I don't want to give it away, and I'm so used to saying.
No, but you know what? The thing was,
bars,
you did it perfectly, because I was like, I know these words, but it's just because you were doing it, because you didn't do it in the same cadence.
Yeah. That's the trick. Trying to throw you off.
Yeah, so Hip Hop Saved My Life is still coming back.
You're good. You're 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Second one. This one is. I think I'm gonna give you a clue before I even do this one and say it's close to home.
Okay.
Right. All right. You should get it straight off the bat, actually. But I don't know.
This is gonna be so embarrassing.
Let's go. Ready?
Yeah. Go.
I stay sweet as a nut, sweet like Tropicana.
Oh my God. Come on, mate. Dizzy Rascal, right?
Correct. And the record.
Correct.
You had him on your. Had him on. Was it a Facebook Live? You had him on, or was it?
Yeah. Mate, he was unbelievable, man.
He's awesome.
And do you know what? He knows his stuff. He was great.
Yes.
He was great. He was great.
All right.
But by the way, your ability to avoid the temptation to just do it like him was admirable there, because the way he does that lyric, it's like sweet as a nut, sweet like Tropicana. Like you can't help wanting to do it like that, can you?
Exactly. So when I've looked at the lyrics, I've thought, shall I just pick a latter part of the song that maybe, you know, we don't get to, or that
right,
play, you know, so sometimes we don't play the record all the way through and all that sort of stuff. So you're good. You're 2 for 3.
Okay, good. So this,
right.
There's no pressure now on this.
So no, you've gone clear. Okay. So this is hit or miss now.
All right, fine.
Last one. You ready?
Yeah, go.
Your simple words don't move me. You're minor, we're major.
Oh, this is Mobb Deep, Shook Ones Part 2, right?
Correct.
Yes, mate. Come on.
3 for 3. I honestly didn't know, you know, I wanted to take it to so many different realms, but I thought for the sake of the game and the producers putting the pressure on, you know, BBC Asian Network, I thought, let's make it so you get the 3 out of 3, bro.
Thank you so much, because I'll be honest with you, that could have been career ending for me. It really could have been. Do you know what I mean? Like if I hadn't have got any of those. Oh. Anyway, I'm glad. I enjoyed the game now. You're not going to get a phone call from my agent going, look, that cannot go out. Can you please?
I was going to say, I don't want to hear of that game in the comedy sketches or any live shows to say, you know, on radio, I've got you doing all kinds of things.
No, don't worry about that.
Right, before we let you jump out of here, it's one more little tester question that the producer team they've done some research. I clearly didn't do my due diligence. There is 2 famous people from Crawley.
Yeah.
Yourself being one.
Yeah.
And another famous person. Is there anyone you can think of from Crawley?
Well, there's a few, but the one I think you're thinking about is Gareth Southgate, right?
Incorrect.
What?
Incorrect. That wasn't the one.
Who are you thinking of?
I'm talking about somebody you went to school with.
Yeah.
He's been on ITV. And he goes by the name of Chico from the X Factor. And the question that the team have set me up with here is to ask you if you remember him from school and if you were friends, because you wouldn't have been that far apart in age.
What I can tell you is no. I mean, listen, no. I don't remember him from school. And we definitely weren't friends. I mean, I don't mean definitely. There's nothing wrong with Chico. So that sounded like I've got a problem with Chico. I've got zero problem. I don't want this to be the start of some sort of Chico Romesh beef. But no, I don't remember him. But I do know people that know him, and they say he's always, because he's kind of quite a charming bloke, isn't he? And he was always like that, apparently.
So you've never crossed paths?
Never crossed paths. But Gareth Southgate went to the same school as me as well. And who else? Dan Walker from the BBC. Right. He's from Crawley, and The Cure. But you know, that was
so big up Crawley.
Yeah, I mean, Crawley's just like, honestly, mate, it's like an entertainment hotbed. You know what I mean?
So on the show, obviously, before you run out of here, I have this feature on the show where I get the special guest to select 3 influential records. And the reason why they've picked the record. Had Sean Paul on the last show and Swizz Beats before that, so no pressure to pick bangers. But I'm gonna hand over to you to tell us your first choice and your reason why, and introduce it when you wrap up, and we're gonna hit play.
Okay. Well, my first choice is a track by Kanye. And listen, I have gone through a roller coaster in terms of what I think about Kanye. And if we put the obvious issues he's going through at the moment to one side, I think what you can't deny about this guy is that he is a proper artist and he will constantly surprise you. And this song that I'm putting on is the one that I first heard that I realised, actually, I think everyone realised at the time was his moment, and that he was like, it's like a perfect story, this track, the start of his big career. And that track is Through the Wire by Kanye West.
Love it. It's the BBC Asian Network, DJ Firestarr, Romesh Ranganathan, his first choice tonight. Kanye West, an anthem. I've got to co-sign it. It's a big record. through the wire. We're going to get into this one right now.
My next track is basically, I went to see this man at the O2 year before last, maybe, and I think that it felt an honour to me to be in the room at the same time as somebody who I knew that was a megastar. So to have a hip hop megastar in our generation, at our time, was a very exciting thing to be part of and to be watching. And I think I realised he was a star at that point. But this tune is the first ever tune I ever heard from him. And this tune is by Kendrick Lamar, and it's Swimming Pools.
Love that. BBC Asian Network, Romesh Ranganathan, the second choice. Kendrick Lamar, Swimming Pools. We're going to press play on this tonight.
My next song is, now anybody that knows me will tell you that I'm a huge Biggie fan. Like, absolutely, I think he's one of the best to ever do it. And I don't think that's a controversial opinion. But in addition, I feel connected with him because we've got similar eyes and a similar physique. I find him inspirational in that regard. And this track is the track that is sort of almost, I think, most synonymous with Biggie. I remember it's the one that everyone was like, this is properly special. And that is Juicy.
Awesome. The third choice from Romesh Ranganathan on the BBC Asian Network. It's your boy DJ Firestarr. This one, Juicy. And before we press play on this, Romesh, I just want to big you up for passing through the show. You know, thanks for taking the time.
Can I just ask a question before you let me go?
Fire away.
Your backdrop.
Correct.
That I'm looking at you now because we're talking over Zoom. I mean, this guy. Have people seen what you're? Is this how you normally? Because
I've only been doing Zooms since.
Mate, you couldn't look more hip hop right now. Basically, I am sitting in my kitchen. My backdrop is fruit and some flowers, and your back. I feel like I've mugged myself off so badly because you're just sitting in front of a wall full of vinyl. You got your name up there. Look, I mean, I actually felt embarrassed. Well, I didn't say it at the time. But when we first logged on, I thought, "Oh, Romesh, you've made such a fool of yourself here, mate." Anyway, the reason I'm saying congratulations on your backdrop. It's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, bro, for passing through the show. And big ups. And we look forward to obviously more comedy, the podcast, and everything. Is there anything else you want to plug while you're,
no. The only thing I want to plug is DJ Firestarr, man. He is honestly. Keep checking out his stuff. That's all. In fact, I would say if you've got a choice between listening to the podcast, my podcast, and listening to him, I would go listen to Firestarr. You're going to get much more from that.